insurance agent is. I get so nervous, like my sister, again, you guys know that I don't have kids, and so I'm really comfortable with about ages 5 on up to 18, but that in-between group, I get really nervous, and my sister was always like, Jim, they're fine, they've been around for thousands of years, they're gonna make it, they're really hard to break, and I'm like, yeah, but they're not mine. So, anyway, today we remember and celebrate Jesus' ascension to heaven after being raised from the dead 40 days ago on Easter morning. And this morning, it must be important because we get 2 different accounts. All right, we get the one from the Gospel of Luke, which actually is the earlier one, and then we get the story from the book of Acts, which is the later one. And it's an incredible story. It has last-minute instructions, sort of like mom and dad going out of town and leaving their kids on their own for the first time. It has angels dressed in white, and it also has a cloud escalator, which I've always wanted to see, going up to heaven. And yet, what I'm most interested in is the word that Jesus uses in both accounts to refer to his followers. Did anybody else catch the job description that Jesus gives to his disciples right before his ascension in both the story from Acts and from Luke? And you're allowed to cheat. You're always allowed to look. Witnesses. Yeah. Which is interesting too because it's also the word martyr. But that's a whole other story. So if I were to ask you in general, and not talking about in a churchy sense, but just what does a witness do in general? What would you say? What does a witness do? Yeah.
Watch something happen.
Witness sees something happen, right? What else? Experiences it. Yeah, or it could be you could be a witness to something with your eyes. You could be a witness to it, physically as well. Yeah, Patrick.
They tell others what they've seen and heard.
Okay, they tell others what they have seen and heard. What else? I'm not looking for anything particular. I'm just curious. What?
Defend.
Okay, they might defend somebody. If somebody is being accused of something, they might stand in and witness for them.
They tell the truth.
They tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Anything else? And again, yes.
I think of the word validate.
Okay, validate. All right. They confirm something. They testify. Yeah, all these are great pieces of being a witness. And at the most basic level, could we agree that a witness tells what they have seen or experienced, not what they think that they should say that they saw or experienced? This job is so important, this role is so crucial that Jesus repeats it twice to us. And I wonder if being witnesses, telling what we have seen, heard, and experienced, is to be the core responsibility of Jesus' followers as we move from Jesus' life and ministry to Pentecost, the gift of the Holy Spirit, and the ministry and the mission of the Christian church in our world. What if one of the primary marks of Christians is that we are called to be storytellers? I don't know about you, but my family comes from a long line of storytellers. Like, that's a big part of our family. I don't know about you guys. My grandfather, my mom's father, was a storyteller. My uncle is a storyteller. My dad is a storyteller. And there are foundational stories in our family that get passed down. And I can remember when I was flying out to preach for you all, to see if whether or not you wanted me as your pastor, my audition. A member of my last church happened to be on the same flight with me, which they didn't know I was interviewing, so the gig was sort of up, And we got talking. We were friends, and I confessed that I was a little nervous about this sermon that I was going to give. I said, "How do you preach to people you don't know yet?" And Joe laughed at me and he said, "Jim, you're not a preacher. You just stand up there and tell stories." And the longer that I do this, the more I realize the truth in his statement. When I get up here, I strive to tell you the truth about the brokenness, joy, and suffering that I've experienced in my life. Try to tie that into the stories of our God that we've witnessed in the Old and New Testaments, and share where I see and experience God at work in our world here and now, redeeming, healing, and forgiving. And with that, there is always the temptation. There's always the temptation to stray away from my story, to go away from God's story, and veer into giving advice, or offering solutions to problems I know little about, or trying to fix people, or fix their relationships. Again, Jesus calls us witnesses. I may not have answers. I may not have solutions. I might not have the most perfect theology. And yet I do have a story to tell. And it's my story. How about you? Do you have a story to tell? Notice that Jesus calls all of his followers to be witnesses. Not some of us. Not selected ones of us. All of us to share our stories about where we have seen or experienced God in our lives. And this is freeing for us, right? And also challenging all at once. Freeing because we aren't called to have perfect answers or polished phrases. Simply the willingness to share with others what we have experienced as truth. That's the one thing that I look for when I go into a church and I get to sit where you are and I get to hear a pastor preach. In the back of my head, I want to hear one thing that pastor, that preacher, that person up there believes is true. Tell me one thing that you believe. Where we have seen God in joyful times, where we have seen God in sorrowful times, where we've felt God's presence and power in humble deeds of service, and when we felt convicted, when we have acted in ways that devalue ourselves or others, and how God continues to love us and never give up on us, no matter how much we mess up or fail. And yet it is always challenging, too, that we have to tell this story, because there's always the temptation to should on people. You should do this, right? You should do that. Witnessing isn't about making my experience your experience, or telling somebody how they should experience God. Our call is to share the grace and love that we have first experienced in our own lives. And I hear this question all the time. I'll hear people say, my friend seems like they're searching spiritually. My friend was asking questions about God, but I wasn't sure what to say. Just tell them your story. Don't tell them why they should go to church. Tell them why you go to church. Did you know that the number one reason why somebody goes to church is never the pastor? All right? It is always that a friend or family member invited them to come. Tell them why you go to church. Tell them why having a faith community has helped you, has guided you, has sustained you. And maybe you're wondering, will it work? Will telling our stories, rather than giving answers, offer hope, help, and the possibility of new life? Well, it worked for a Palestinian carpenter 2,000 years ago. Because if you think about it, he was the ultimate storyteller, right? I mean, look back throughout, and Jesus said, There once was a man with 2 sons. And again, he replied, there once was a man going down from Jerusalem to Jericho who fell into the hands of robbers. Stories upon stories upon stories. And I've heard and seen the powers of your personal stories about God's work in your lives. Last year during Lent, our average midweek service attendance was around 20 people, which was great. I had a good time with you all. This year, we tried something different. And we had members of the congregation share personal stories about where they experienced God and the holiness in their lives. Our average attendance to hear your witness to God's activity in our world went up to 40 people a week. So if I have 2 people share a story, next year will it go up to 80? Another member last year told me the story of how her daughter battled with heroin addiction. And out of that story, our church has hosted now an education event on addiction. We've helped to organize an event, this happened this last week, for clergy and church leadership to teach resources about prevention and treatment for addiction. And now we're seeking to hold a community training event to teach us how to use the life-saving overdose reversal drug Narcan. From one woman's story of suffering, loss, pain, trial, healing, and God's presence throughout it all, she has educated over 100 people and now has the chance to pass on life-saving medication. What is your story? What will your story do? Who do you know through work, through sports, school, or family, who needs to hear how God has acted in your life? Today we hear that we are all witnesses, all of us, called and compelled to tell the truth as we have experienced it. And in this way, we are promised that the story of God's saving and healing love will be told to the very ends of the earth. Pentecost is coming. Power is coming. Who will you tell your story to? Because who knows? You might be the only gospel that they ever read. Thanks be to God and amen.